Hello, welcome to the special series with the Awaaz India TV. Today we are discussing about the education system. Education is the most important thing in every human being's life, whether it may be in history, in past or in present, or whether it will be in future. But what we are seeing here and what we are discussing today, that National Education Policy 2020 has been proposed by Government of India in recent times. So how will it be beneficial and what are new things included in this policy we are discussing in this interview? We have our guest Dhiman Vijay Mankar. Welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you.
He is the National President of Ambedkarite Party of India and a great academician. But before going towards the National Education Policy 2020, I would like to ask you, sir, that what is the history of education?
The history of education, modern education in India.
Yes.
If we specifically divide this segment,
yes,
actually.
modern education.
It starts from Charles Grant. Charles Grant was the first, Britisher who convinced British Parliament. He wrote a book, Observations. The name of the book is Observations, in which he systematically, explained that why, the Indians are backward. They are backward because they do not know, the science and, the modern, English language and the modern subjects. They study religion and culture and all those things, and therefore, they have not adopted the modernity which happened in Europe. So he is the pioneer of India who convinced the British Parliament that there should be a new education policy based on, science and introduction of English language. And I consider him as well as Lord Bentinck, where the Macaulay policy came in, as the two pioneering efforts in India, whereby the beginning of modern education took place. And Lord Curzon, who brought major reforms in the higher education in India.
But if we will go more past in history, so what do you think that this is the first university which could be set in India and in this Indus Valley region, and who has proposed this education system firstly in past history time?
See, if we consider our ancient history and ancient history in the world context, the first reference of education, we will have to consider the divisions, classifications of civilization. If we go to the prehistory, then there was a cave civilization and the forest civilization. That is one part. Then the Neolithic revolution, that is said, where the first rural settlements near the river valley started. The Natufian culture, the Sumerian culture, the Mesopotamian culture, the Egyptian culture, the Chinese culture, and the Indus valleys, of course, what we are discussing here in India. Near the rivers, river valley civilization started. And out of these, there was a rural phase and there is an urban phase. So the first systematic, reference to education is from the Sumerian civilization. Sumerian civilization, Sumer is the region of Iraq and Kuwait, prevailing Iraq and Kuwait. That is the area of Sumerian civilization. From there, the history of ancient education in the urban phase of civilization starts. And some references there to the Egyptian civilization. And of course, first university of the world is Takshashila.
So who brought this Takshashila into working?
Takshashila was founded by the Persian king, actually.
Okay.
It was not founded by Indians, actually. It was founded by the Persian kings. Persian king Darius means, Persia means Iran. Today's Iran is Persia. So it was founded by the Persian kings, but later on the Vedic and the Buddhist systems, they had a great influence on the development of Takshashila.
So this was the history which Vijay Mankar sir was telling us about the education system in all over the world. Now, sir, let's come to the present, and I would like to know, how do you see this National Education Policy 2020?
It's just like a 2020 match, actually. If you don't play it properly, you can lose even in the last ball. Okay. That is what I would define it as a education policy, just like a 2020. Because there are some pros and cons in this education policy. There are a lot of good things in this education policy. But there are some very serious weaknesses which makes this policy very bad. And the outcomes of the overall policy may not be good. So we will have to understand this into different perspectives.
Yes, we will go through it, but what are the advantages? We will talk upon this.
So let's begin from the advantages. It brings a system of, pre-primary, primary and higher education system. It introduced, midday meals even in the pre-primary, segment. That is very important for the nutrition, because nutrition is related with the cognitive development of the pupil or the child. So that is the first thing that it introduces. Second is that it adopts a new formula of 5-3-3-4. So
Yes.
it classifies from 3 to 18 years, a systematic, in what age, what type of a education should be given. That is a positive point that this policy brings. This policy for the first time says something very positive, that education is not a private affair, or not a private good, but it's a public good. So there should be no profiteering in the education. That is what this education policy says, at least in principle it says. It not only says something about the quality, but also about the equity in education, about the learning outcomes, about the assessment of the learning outcomes, about the education, the teachers' education and training and the promotions also. It says so many things. Yes. Then apart from this, if we come to the segment of the higher section, it says that it would be welcoming 100 foreign university educations. It speaks about multidisciplinary education in the higher education system. It speaks about the autonomy of education system, autonomy in pedagogy and autonomy in designing even the curriculums. Then it speaks about modern infrastructural facilities, more use of science and technology in the education. It for the first time says that 6% of the GDP has to be spent on education, and 20% of the public expenditure, both of the center and the states. So these are many positive aspects of this education system that I feel that are worth appreciating. But if we consider the negative points, then the outcome would be something different.
We will go through it. But I want to ask you, sir, that is it beneficial to every age of person or every age in student in this system of education? Is it beneficial to every age person?
Yeah, at least in theory, if you look at the education policy, we can say that it covers all the ages.
So, as you are saying that it is having major disadvantages, so would you like to elaborate those disadvantages?
The major disadvantage of this education policy is that it lays overemphasis or too much emphasis on languages, culture, tradition, values, and dharma.
Okay.
That is the most negative point of this education policy. Yes. See, we are into a fourth industrial revolution now. We are into a fourth industrial revolution. Yes. We are on the verge of becoming a post-industrial society. Now we are in a transformation stage from the agricultural society to an industrial society. And if you see all the data, not only of the government of India, but of the foreign institutions, like I can quote McKinsey report, I can quote Cambridge Econometrics about the skilling or talent and skills in India, about the job requirement in India, about the economic growth in India. So if you see all these reports systematically, and if you corroborate this education policy with the future requirements of India from 2020 onwards, we are required to grow at a rate of 8 to 8.5% per annum. We are required to grow at a rate whereby we can ensure at least 90 lakh jobs to the youths in India. From 90 lakhs to 1,20,000 jobs in 2023. But today we are creating hardly 20 lakh jobs in India. Okay, this means that we are leaving almost all 70 lakh students just to have any work and to just barely survive. Okay, now what these two reports that I've cited, the McKinsey report and the Cambridge Econometrics report, says that India is having a lot of youth population in the working age, but it's lower educated and it's a very unskilled labor force. I would give you an example of South Korea. Now you see this LG, you see AC, or you see LG TVs, they are all from South Korea.
Yes, sir.
The South Korean population, working age population, is skilled up to 96%. Germany 75%, Japan 80%, America 64%, UK 68%, China there is no systematic data, but China also skilled working age population about 60%. the skilled population, working age population in India is barely 5%.
This is a serious issue.
So how you would compete, because the economy, the future economy of India would be not labor intensive. We'll have to take out, you see, the people from the agricultural sector. Almost all 35 you see crore, you see people from the agricultural sector to the non-farm sector. So the non-farming sector, that is the manufacturing sector, construction sector, the services sector, it is a sector which requires a lot of education and skilling and a lot of talent. This growth is called a knowledge and innovation driven growth. That is what Romer and Solow said, that the growth is not labor intensive or only capital intensive. That means if you are having many people in the working age population, you need not grow at the rate of 8%. If you are having much more money, a lot of capital to invest, but it does not guarantee that you will grow at a rate of 8%. But what guarantees a growth above 8% is talent, is skilling, is intelligence. So therefore, what type of an education is required? I say that the education should be based on science and humanism, on human rights, on constitution. IKTC, intelligence, knowledge, thinking, and computings or calculations. If these things are not there in your education, it's useless to speak about artificial intelligence. Our Prime Minister of India, who does not possess even minimum intelligence, was yesterday speaking about artificial intelligence. And you see his Hindutvavadi brigade, they are saying that Sanskrit would be the language of artificial intelligence. Whereas you see artificial intelligence is basically a mathematical language. It's a language of the programming. The machine learning languages are derived from many languages of the world. So this is a dogma of Hindutva, of this BJP government, that they cannot understand the nitty-gritties of education and how to take out this education. That is a major demerit of this education policy.
Okay, so you are saying that the language issue is there in this particular
Yeah,
policy.
why not English? Why not English? You say you want to study up to 5th standard in Marathi, in Tudu, in Tamil, in Telugu. Okay, I am not against any native language of India. But why can't you see teach mathematics and sciences and other subjects in English, right, since you see the pre-KG?
Okay.
After all, you see, you don't have a vocabulary, a lexicon. Suppose if I ask, you see, today that how many words of English, of economics have been translated into Hindi? Is there any standard dictionary? No. Is there any standard dictionary which has been translated of science and technology in Hindi or Telugu or Tamil or you see any other language or Sanskrit? No. So English, you see China. China, it was basically a country which had pride, which has taken pride in Mandarin. Mandarin is a Chinese language. Today you see China, 50 crore students are studying English. I would cite you an example of United Arab Emirates. It's an Islamic country. It is the most progressive country now. It is having its own space program. It is having more number of women in its parliament than India. Why? How? It adopted English education. It did not give the education in Arabic.
So what will you say, that tradition is more important or scientific thinking is important?
Science is more important. Technology is more important. Human rights is more important. Constitution and law is more important.
So how this policy is gonna impact on economically backward people?
Economically backward people, though it speaks something good about that, you see, amending the Right to Education Act, guaranteeing, you see, admissions up to 12th standard. Then it speaks that it would promote, you see, education for the socially and educationally disadvantaged people. But you see, systematically, if you see, it says that it will not be for profiteering, but it does not speak anything very, very categorically about the scholarship scheme, about the freeship schemes, about what sort of an economical support it would give for the students of the SC, STs, OBCs and DTNTs and minorities and from the rural folklore if they want to study in these foreign universities in India or abroad. What sort of a financial support would be there? It does not lay down. I have cited the example of Rohit Vemula. Rohit Vemula, according to me, should not have been in a position to commit suicide. If there would have been a simple provision, there should have been an anti-discrimination law in the higher education or every education system. There should be an anti-discrimination officer. If there is any discrimination with SC, ST, OBC minorities, he can just write a simple complaint to the anti-discrimination officer and he can give an order to the BC or to the concerned department of the head of the department or to the professor or to the administrative staff, whatever is required. The simple provision was not there. That is called the anti-discrimination measure. That is not there.
So in this policy, there is no.
There may be still problem for SC, ST, OBCs and minorities
so
in this
there
problem.
is no
Anti-discrimination measure. There is no clear-cut policy how the scholarship and the freeship and the promotional schemes for higher education would be there.
So what is new in this policy, and how will this India, what it is being said that India is heading towards new India. So
This policy will not take India into a new India. It will take India to old India. Because you are not studying science, you are not studying technology, you are not studying humanism, human rights, you are not studying, you see, constitution and rule of law.
But they have said that they will be opting for science and technology.
Science would be there, but it is not a policy based on science. Now, even now you are studying science, physics, chemistry, mathematics. These are all subjects of science. How many scientists are you producing in India?
This is a big issue because
how many Nobel you have received in the field of science and technology? Why don't you receive a Nobel in the field of science and technology?
In spite of having English language.
That's what I'm saying. So therefore, teaching science as a subject and basing the educational policy on science and technology and human rights and the social sciences and all the knowledges of the world is different. That this policy conspicuously misses.
So what will be the remedies which you will like to suggest to the government?
No, suggesting anything to this government is just, you see,
saying
something
so
to...
what will be the objection, and how will you, are you planning to table the bill?
I'm very much, you see, disappointed. I was disappointed because Mr. Kasturi Rangan headed, you see, ISRO. He himself was a scientist. Okay. He could have, you see, paid a lot of attention on all these things, what I'm saying. Okay. And there was a lot of, you see, discussion, debate and a lot of interaction while this policy was taking on. Many people gave their views also in this policy, but that is not reflected in the final draft of this policy. Okay. So what is the use of suggesting these people, these fools who say that Sanskrit can be language of the artificial intelligence? Yesterday he was saying that Aryabhatta invented zero. The Prime Minister of India or these people in the Bharatiya Science Conference, they even don't know that, you see, the Egyptian civilization was knowing zero. They do not know that the Olmec civilization of Mexico region, the Central America, they were knowing zero. Aryabhatta only, you see, developed the decimal system, that is after 9, 10, 20, 30. This system was developed by Aryabhatta. These people, they do not know all these things.
They are saying that he has discovered something, but they are not knowing.
Yeah, they do not know that zero was already known to the Egyptians and to the Olmec people. 4,000 years before Aryabhatta.
So, are you planning to table any objectionable bill in Parliament?
No, now already this policy isn't into the framework of being implementation now.
Yes.
So it will not be reformed now. You'll have to reform the government, that is to change the government, BJP government, for bringing a proper policy in India. It may take some time. But this policy will not take India into a new India. $5 trillion economy till 2025 is a big dream. Now it will go up to 2030. $5 trillion economy. It is not going to come by 2025 now.
What you think that this government has said that it will be beneficial in future times, this new education policy, and you are saying that it will take India to backward. So
it's a mediocre policy, so-so policy. It will not take India ahead of United States of America or China within 20 years or 30. Require a policy which can take India ahead of USA and China within 20 years.
So how will you summarize this National Education Policy 2020?
It's a very mediocre policy.
Yes.
It's a very mediocre policy having some good features. But the negative points of this policy overweigh over the, you see, positive features. And the demands of the post-industrial society or the fourth industrial revolution of providing 90 lakh jobs to the youths of India cannot be guaranteed by this education policy. This education policy will not make Indians of scientific thinking, not make Indians who value, you see, human rights and democracy. This will make Indians more, you see, traditional and historiographic.
So this was Dhiman Vijaymankar speaking with us. He has told many pros and many cons of this National Education Policy 2020. But leave it on you, how you think, and then we will discuss this topic more further on with Dhiman Vijaymankar. Till then, stay tuned.